Welcome to the Inside Elections podcast, where we analyze elections in a nonpartisan, data-driven, and accessible way. In this episode, we'll preview the annual Congressional softball game between members of the press and members of the Congress with organizer Atalie Ebersole. We'll also talk about the game and the resolve of Trump's Latino supporters with Bridget Bowman of NBC News. Buckle up. I'm Jacob Rubashkin, Deputy Editor of Inside Elections, the go-to place for nonpartisan political news and analysis for more than 40 years. And I just got back from a wonderful trip to Gambrill State Park in Maryland, which is in the 6th Congressional District, currently represented by Democrat April McClain Delaney.
And I'm Nathan Gonzales, editor and publisher of Inside Elections, and I spent most of the weekend at Great Wolf Lodge in Perryville, Maryland, which is in the 1st District, up in the northeast corner of the state, almost to Delaware. That district is represented by Republican Andy Harris.
It was a real Maryland-centered week today.
Yeah, I over the years, when I first moved to D.C., I think we had a Northern Virginia bias. If we weren't doing something in the city, we would go to Northern Virginia. But now we're very Maryland, a lot of our activities and our life, if it's not in Northeast DC, we're Maryland folks. Is that how you're supposed to? I don't know. You're the native, but now
depends where you're coming from in the state. For a tiny state, we've got a lot of accents.
That's true. More diverse than, even though it's a blue state on a map, people probably don't realize the diversity of the suburbs, the DC suburbs, Maryland, and then out where I was this weekend, or way out at Deep Creek. I mean, that is more, feels like more West Virginia than Maryland.
Before we get into our main stories of the day, what are some recent headlines that people should not miss?
Republican Derek Merrin officially launched his campaign against Democratic Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur in Ohio's 9th District in a potential rematch of one of the closest races of 2024. But Merrin doesn't have the GOP field to himself, with Air National Guard Lieutenant Colonel Aliyah Nadeem and potentially others running as well. Even if Republicans don't make the district more friendly or more GOP friendly in redistricting, Kaptur is likely to have a very tough race.
In Texas, astronaut Terry Virts launched his campaign for Senate for the seat currently held by Republican John Cornyn. Virts is a Democrat. He's a retired Air Force fighter pilot and a previous commander of the International Space Station. Inside Elections actually broke the news of his interest in the race 2 months ago in our Senate overview issue.
In a recent interview on the Galen Druk podcast, Alaska Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski said she's open to becoming an independent and caucusing with Democrats. Now, Murkowski is not up for re-election. Her Republican colleague Dan Sullivan is, but this scenario would reduce the number of seats that Democrats need to gain for a Senate majority from 4 to 3.
If Murkowski really does mean what she said, what she told Galen, that's a huge news for the Senate Democrats, simply because the map there is difficult for them this coming cycle. They have very few opportunities. They're trying to make more happen. And one of the states that they're hoping to pull into contention is Iowa, where State Senator Zach Walz became the latest Democrat to jump into the race there. He joins a field that already includes mechanic, veteran, and Chamber of Commerce CEO Nathan Sage, as well as pro baseball player and state representative J.D. Scholten. Any of them would be underdogs against Republican Joni Ernst in that race, though a recent Wall Street Journal article did say that not all Republicans are convinced that she will actually run for re-election.
And if you want to know more about J.D. Scholten's potential impact on the congressional baseball game, you should listen to the previous episode where we walk through a little bit more about his background and his pitching repertoire.
I want to welcome back Atalie Ebersole of the Pet Food Institute to the show. She is a loyal subscriber to the Inside Elections newsletter and a key organizer of the annual Congressional Women's Softball Game, which is coming up on July 16th. So, Atalie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me today. It's great to see you guys again.
So, the last time you were on the show, we already learned a little bit about the congressional district that you grew up in, which is Missouri's 8th district. So, tell us, if you would, is there any district that you're planning on traveling to in the near future or sometime this summer?
Well, hopefully, I'm going to go to the beach for August recess. So I think it's in the first district of Florida, headed down to the Panhandle, and going to sit on the white sandy beaches of Destin. So that I'm looking forward to that. Also headed back to the 8th district of Missouri to see my family during August recess.
So will you drive from those or fly? What is I should know the exact distance between Missouri's 8th and Florida's 1st, but I don't.
I mean, it's doable. It's not one of my preferences. I have done it before, but yes, I'm going to fly. It's much easier. It's about a 2-hour flight from here. So, and about 2 hours to Missouri too. So yeah, much easier to fly. But if you have
The
to, I
first
guess it's going to be a good road trip, right?
As long as you download the Inside Elections podcast. Plenty of
Exactly.
episodes.
Take it with me wherever I go.
Exactly.
Let's get right into it because the game is coming up in just a couple of weeks. And I know we're very excited here at the Inside Elections podcast to be there next month. And there are a lot of new developments that we want to get your take on
So
for
many
the
new
game this
developments.
year. Let's talk location. Audi Field,
Yeah.
new and big location. How did this come about?
Well, we were not planning this for this year. I mean, we've been looking for kind of a more permanent home that we can kind of call our own. We have been at Watkins Recreation for the last 15 years. And so just love that neighborhood. It's right there on Capitol Hill. Watkins is just a really great place to play softball. But unfortunately, they're going to be undergoing renovations. I think they started yesterday, actually. So they are redoing the playground, the basketball court, and they are completely tearing up the turf field and we're replacing that. So, unfortunately, with it starting this week, that we weren't going to be able to be there, and so we found that out. I want to say it was like mid-April, maybe early
Oh,
May,
wow.
and so it was one of those things like, oh no, okay,
Not that long
so
ago.
yeah, what do we do? Should we postpone the game till the fall when they're back in schools back in session and everything is ready to go, or do we just find a new home? So we started looking around the DC area, and really the best place that we could find was going to Audi Field. So we called them up and had a site visit, and they had lots of questions, and we had lots of questions, and we were able to. The great thing is the July 16th was available. That was number one, so got that checked pretty quickly. And they said, yeah, no problem. We can actually turn the soccer field into a softball field. So we've got the bases ordered. They can't be put into the ground, but that's okay. But yeah, we are so excited to be at Audi Field. I think it's really going to up our game and really give a great new experience for not only our sponsors like Inside Elections. Thank you guys again for being a great sponsor of this game, but also our fans. And so, you're going to have actual real seats this time. It's just sitting on metal bleachers or just standing in the standing room only section. So we're very thrilled and very excited to partner with Monumental Sports. Is going to be actually live broadcasting the game as well. So that's also a new thing to announce, and then be at Audi Field. And again, just looking forward to potentially this is going to be our home from now on. So very,
Wow. So
very
this
thrilled.
you think this might be, even once Watkins is done, might be a more permanent spot for the game here.
I think it might be. We are going to talk to all of our sponsors after the game and kind of get their feel because, I mean, you all have been to the game. A lot of your listeners have been to the game. It's a very fun environment being at Watkins. We have the bleachers right there on the field. You're right there in the middle of all the action, could easily get hit by a flying softball. So it's going to be a different feel for our fans this year. They're going to be actually in the stands watching it, not right there on the field. So if folks don't like it, I mean, Watkins, I think will be a good option to go back to. But I would love to hear what you think after July 16th.
Well, and my first thought when I saw the press release, my first thought was, this is amazing. Like, I love Audi Field. I think it's probably the best sporting venue in DC. I think the Spirit games are so much fun, and obviously, it's great that the softball game is getting a more robust venue, and that it's going to be broadcast live. And then my second thought was, part of what makes the game so fun is that it's more intimate than like the congressional baseball game or some of these other things. And it has more of almost like a festival fair kind of atmosphere.
Yeah.
I'm very curious. What are you, how are you thinking about that? What, if anything, are you guys doing to try and preserve that kind of environment, even as you translate to a much larger venue?
Well, and that's our concern too, because we still want it to be that great experience that our fans and our sponsors have raved about for 17 years now. We will have kind of like that sponsor area that we had at Watkins. We'll have it still there at Audi. It'll be in the fan plaza area just as soon as people come through Gate A. So we will have lots of good giveaways from our sponsors. And then we also are still going to do the kid zone and have some just fun things for them to do, whether it's a cornhole or learning some new skills and drills with softball. We'll have a photo booth sponsored by Aflac, and then just try. We'll have actually Beatrice is bringing scoops to you again, so there'll be free ice cream. And then just trying to just keep that feel. Again, it's a little bit of a challenge, just making these changes mid planning. But we are very excited. The game's 3.5 weeks away as of tomorrow. But yeah, I'd love to hear kind of your feedback after you come and experience. But we really want to keep that family friendly environment.
For those of you that aren't familiar with the softball game, it's a little bit different than the baseball game in that the baseball game is between Republican members and Democratic members. The softball game is between members of Congress together against members of the media and press and reporters. So, Atalie, what roster changes might there be on them? Because you're an organizer and working with the members. What roster changes are there that should we expect?
Well, so our rosters have been announced. It's on our website, but we have on the member team, there are 8 new rookie players. So I think this is the only second year that we've had such a huge class of rookies. So, we're just so thrilled that they've decided to join the team this year. I don't know, it would be great if maybe I just kind of run over them real quick just to let you know who they are. Sherry Biggs from South Carolina. We've got Maxine Dexter from Oregon. Julie Fedorchak from North Dakota, Maggie Goodlander from New Hampshire, Julie Johnson from Texas, Sydney Conlager Dove from California, Kim King Hines from the Northern Mariana Islands, and then Emily Randall. So we've got 8 great new rookies on the member team. We were at practice this morning, and let me tell you, some of these ladies can really hit, and I'm looking forward to seeing them out on the field. And then with regard to the press team, AKA the Bad News Babes, Amy Walter with Cook Political Report is coming back out of retirement to play this year. And then also Mika Solner with Punchbowl News is coming back. She played, I think it was 2 years ago that she played. So she's coming back. But their team is completely the same. They're a great team. I went to their first practice a few weeks ago, and let me tell you, the members have their work cut out for them because, in fact, Joe Beninati, who is going to be the announcer for Monumental Sports Network, wonderful play-by-play announcer for the Capitals. He said, "Boy, that Katie Labasco, boy, I think she could play the whole team, the whole member team just by herself." So she's an incredible player. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to the rematch. It's going to be interesting to see who takes home the trophy this year.
I'm curious. I have kind of 2 perhaps related questions, one more serious and one a little bit more fun. Um, I'll go with the fun one first.
Okay.
The Bad News Babes typically win the game, right? I mean, they've got a pretty solid record. How frustrating is that for these super competitive members of Congress? They got to win re-election every 2 years. They're like they run their own little fiefdoms up on the hill to show up and just get beaten year in and year out by a bunch of reporters who they might not always have the best kind of relationship with. How frustrating. Take us in the mind of the members team as they kind of row against the tide
I
year
tell
after
you,
year.
boy, that's a tough question, right? I mean, I think
And
you
that's the
might
fun
need.
one.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, great. They take it in stride, I think, even though they're all type A personality ladies. I mean, they want to win, number one. And they really want to win this year because they've gotten beat the last 2 years in a row. Um, yeah, it's tough, but they graciously bring the big trophy out to the field and hand it over to the press team. Almost seems like every year. So, but it's that's why I think maybe with these new rookies, maybe there might be a little bit more competition this year. Maybe we'll get a few more home runs on the member side, and maybe they'll actually get a win in their column. I need to look and see actually how many. Each side has won. When I was talking to Joe this morning at practice, he asked that question. I was like, it's not a good record if you're talking for the member side. So they need to work on it. But I know they are. They're working hard at practice. So we'll see.
And then kind of on a more serious note, obviously this is a really tense moment in politics. I think you don't have to watch very many hours of C-SPAN to know that these are not people who always get along with each other across the aisle, and it only seems like we're going further down that direction. How do the members manage that? How do they kind of work to put their partisan differences aside when they're playing literally on the same team, even if it's just for one night?
That's a really great question. And I may have said this the last time we visited last year, but it's just so wonderful to see these ladies come out and, whether the Republican, Democrat, House, or Senate, come together and raise money to beat cancer. We really try to leave all the politics, kind of at the dugout when they come out onto the field. Of course, there are, we do talk about it sometimes because clearly there's a lot of things happening right now, a lot of important legislation on the House and Senate floor, but it's just been a pleasure to watch them come together and really find ways to work together. And I wish we had more of that. I've seen it over the last 17 years. A lot of them didn't know each other, when they started playing. Maybe didn't even know each other in their own party. And it's just been such, just like I said, a real pleasure just to watch them get to know each other as people and find ways. I mean, they have to pull together, and if it's hit to the shortstop, it has to go to first base, and it doesn't matter if it's a Democrat or Republican that's there at first base. They have to catch it, or those bad news babes are going to run completely all the way out to home. I hope I answered your question, but it's just I think that I think we've got to find ways to come together, and if it's over softball or other things that we can find, just ways to get together. And again, it's for an important cause, trying to help young adults that are battling a breast cancer diagnosis. A lot of times those folks are very, very scared, and they don't know what treatment's going to look like. They might have to go through double mastectomies or, reconstruction. And it's a scary time. So I'm just so grateful that members of Congress and the members of the DC Press Corps can come together and just really and work together to beat cancer. I wish it'd be wonderful if we had no cancer in this world. But I think we're all touched by, it doesn't matter what kind of cancer it is, but just grateful for the opportunity to work with these ladies on both sides of the aisle, and of course with the DC Press Corps.
I'm sure it helps to have that common goal that's bigger than anybody else, right? I mean, it's only going to be a group effort. Well, we will include a link in the chatter, but Atalie, tell people if they're riding in their car or riding their bike or jog, tell people how to get tickets and how to even sponsor if they want to sponsor.
Oh, thank you so much, Nathan. So they can go to our website. It's a little strange. Let me spell it for you. It's CONG womensoftball.org. One of these days, I think we're going to have to change it to something easier, but yes. So congwomensoftball.org. Our sponsor packet is there right on the website, and you can email us. It tells you how to do that. Tickets can also be obtained on our website. There's a link to do that. It's probably easier just to have folks go to our website and buy tickets. But tickets are $12 and $20. The difference is the $20 tickets are in the club level there at Audi Field for those that are familiar. So you'll have access to the DC events club area for concessions, and then the 100 section level for the $12 ticket. So they do that does not include the fees that unfortunately the stadium has to put on, but it's pretty cheap for a really fun evening to watch the members and the press team go at it on the softball field. But yeah, we're really looking forward to July 16th.
I got to ask because I always appreciate her commentary. I know Senator Klobuchar has been kind of an integral part of the game at the announcers table. I'm wondering, you mentioned, Joe Beninati and kind of the MSN crew that is going to be coming in to call the game on air. Will you still have those either Senator Klobuchar or I know Dana Bash, Andrea Mitchell? You've got a long list of illustrious folks who have taken a turn at the microphone for the pleasure of the in-stadium audience. Is that gonna continue along in the new venue as well?
We have to continue that tradition. Yes. So invitations have already been sent out to Dana Bash, Andrea Mitchell, Senator Klobuchar, and also former Congresswoman Sherry Bustos from Illinois. She and Congresswoman Ileana Ros-Lehtinen filled in last year for Senator Klobuchar because I think the Senate was out of session that particular week that we actually held the game. So yes, all four ladies were expecting at the field on July 16th to kind of give some color commentary along in the announcer booth with Joe. So yeah, we don't want to disappoint those fans too. Yes.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining us again. We'll be looking forward to an even bigger turnout and maybe a Bad News Babes win, but that's okay. No injuries, right? That's what my wife tells me when I go out to play.
No injuries.
No injuries.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I tell you, we don't need injuries. The first year when Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz broke her leg. So we definitely do not want anything like that again. But yeah. I'd love to hear what Bridget thinks who's going to win this year. So I'll be happy to listen to the podcast and see what she says.
Yeah, I have a feeling, but we'll all be listening. So thank you. And we'll see you next time.
Okay. Thank you all so much.
We also want to welcome back Bridget Bowman, who is one of the media team's star players in the upcoming softball game and also happens to work at NBC News. Of course, just as importantly, an alumna of the Roll Call Politics team for many years, where we worked pretty closely. So, Bridget, thank you for joining us on your third time on the show, maybe fourth time on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here to talk about softball and politics. It's great.
So we know from a previous appearance of yours which congressional district you grow up in. That was New York's 26th district. But tell us, is there a district that you have traveled to recently, either for work or for fun?
Yeah, so I was recently in New Jersey before that primary for governor earlier this month. And so I was kind of all over the state, but I spent some time in New Jersey's 6th district. This is a really Democratic district, and it includes Asbury Park. And I was there because a bunch of the Democratic candidates were marching in the Asbury Park Pride Parade. So I got to see kind of that area of the state, of course, is famous for being where Bruce Springsteen launched his career. So it was very cool to be there. I ended up walking the length of the parade as I was kind of catching up with candidates along the way. So yeah, it was a really cool experience. I saw the Stone Pony, which is the iconic music venue where Springsteen kind of started out. And my dad is a huge Bruce Springsteen fan. So I had to go and take a photo of it and send it to him. But it was also kind of funny because as I took a photo of it and I realized there are cameras outside. I'm like, that's weird. And then I see Josh Gottheimer, who is filming an ad outside the Stone Pony, which ended up being his closing ad in the race, the congressman who ultimately fell short of the nomination. But it was just a very just coincidence. I just happened to bump into him after I saw him earlier that day in the parade. So it was just kind of a funny coincidence.
There's a hotel that's right there, and then I spoke to a group, and it's a kind of a refurbished bowling alley slash bar or something that's sort of went on the other side of the hotel from where the Stone Pony is.
Mm.
But I don't know, it's a cool. I had never been there before, and I took a picture outside, but there was nobody else. It was, I don't know, a Saturday morning. It was raining.
Oh.
There was nothing. I feel like I have to take a picture, and so
Yeah, you got to.
your story is way better than what mine, your
Well,
experience.
and Gottheimer got himself in a little bit of trouble a couple of years ago
Yeah.
because he faked a Spotify Wrapped photo to make it seem like he really was that, like, all his top songs were Springsteen songs, and he got
Mm-hmm.
called out on it. Someone like noticed that it was photoshopped, and so it became kind of a little scandal at the end of last year, and maybe presaged his struggles in the gubernatorial race a couple
Yeah.
months later. So
But it didn't stop his campaign because he was born to run.
Well, Jacob
maybe
just
not
got a
born to win.
Not born to run. Oh my
man,
God.
brutal. Well, Jacob just got a shout out from one of our readers because in his write up of the New Jersey gubernatorial primary, it was there were a fair number of Springsteen references, and someone
Nice.
noticed, and so yes, that's great job.
You
Well, the real
got to.
question
You
is,
got to.
Nathan, you picked up on that, right? Because I don't think
Yeah.
we ever actually talked about. Okay, I just made all the headers of my story Springsteen songs, and without comment.
You're just like, I'm
I
gonna
mean,
see
I'm
if
not
this
a
gets past the editor.
I'm not a huge Springsteen fan, if I'm allowed to stay on this podcast after saying that, but I did recognize I could recognize the trend.
There we go.
Nice.
As much as we could talk for hours and hours about The Boss and the new biopic coming out with Jeremy Allen White, there are some exciting things happening in the next couple of weeks we want to get your take on, starting with, of course, the softball game, where you are one of the standouts on the Bad News Babes, the press team. This year, you're playing at Audi Field. Talk to us how you're feeling
Yes.
about that. Are you excited? Are you nervous? What's running through your head as you prepare for that July 16 game?
Yeah, I would say a little bit of both. It's definitely exciting because it feels like bigger venue, kind of bigger scale. I've been playing in this game since 2016, so it's just grown so much in the last several of years, which is hard to believe that it was that long ago. So it's very exciting. I think it'll be interesting to see the vibes. I'm definitely a little nervous just because I believe the field is all grass, which is not what we usually play on a turf field, or of course, like if you're on a regular ball field, it's dirt. And so playing on all grass, I'm like a little worried about grounders. Like, is it going to be slow? Like, so I'm a little nervous about the conditions, I guess. But no, I think it's exciting. And I'm excited to see kind of what it's all going to look like.
It's going to be hard, though. I mean, you're one of the only people to hit a outside the park home run at Watkins. I imagine you're going to have your work cut out for you to hit an outside of the park home run at Audi Field.
That's a good question. I imagine they're going to have some kind of fence and it won't just roll for eternity.
into the goal, the soccer goal at the far end or something.
Exactly. So maybe we could still see something hit out of the park. Gretchen Frazee from the NewsHour, the PBS NewsHour, has also hit it out of the park. And we have some strong hitters. So hopefully we could see some of that this year too.
Well, in Bridget, we trust. No pressure or anything. But
yeah.
I know Atalie ran us through kind of the many rookies on the members team. Are there any new changes to the press roster? Any Hall of Famers who are putting back on the jersey after getting sent off to retirement? What should we expect from the team?
Feels like you're teeing her up there, Jake.
Yes. Amy Walter of the Cook Political Report is coming back. She had kind of gone into retirement. She's coming back, which is very exciting. She's one of our pitchers, along with Brianna Keeler of CNN. She is just so solid. She's such a good hitter. She's such a good fielder, like all around very good player. Mika with Punch Bowl is coming back this year, which is exciting. And then aside from that, like it's all the same team. So we've all been playing together for a little while. We gel very well together. We kind of, our first practice, like kind of clicked back into it right away. So we're looking pretty good. I'm not going to lie. So I think the members should be a little nervous.
And does it ever cause you an issue when you're like up on the hill and you're like trying to get a quote from a member and they're like, right, but you like tagged me out real hard at second base at the game, so tough luck. Maybe next time.
Maybe drop the ball at first next time and I'll give you a good quote. Yeah, no, that has never happened to me, which is good. Usually like it's kind of a nice bond. We say, oh yeah, I play softball, or they'll recognize your name, which is always kind of nice. But no, I think there is definitely some trash talking for sure. A lot of that happens on social media where you'll be tagged in something, and but all in good fun. It's a good time. But yeah, there is definitely a rivalry for sure.
Who's the biggest trash talker on the members team?
Ooh, that is a good question. I'm trying to remember who. I feel like there was some stuff on Twitter a couple years, maybe Congresswoman Kathy Castor. She tends to post sometimes, if I remember correctly. I mean, we do some trash talking towards them too, so it comes from both. It comes from both sides.
At least you back it up. If you're trash talking, back it up. That's the best combination.
That's true. That's true.
Well, to give people, because of my bias toward the press team, to give people a look behind the scenes when we interview candidates for Congress, we'll talk about their race and their bio and their fundraising and their consulting team, everything. At the end of every interview, I ask both whether men or women if they're going to play in the baseball or softball game. And part of it, I'm just interested, but I'm also doing a little bit of scouting for the media team. It's like who could be coming up and getting elected in the softball games. So I'm trying to do my part without being on the field itself.
Appreciate it. Pass along some notes if somebody's looking strong so we can be prepared. And it's funny too, it seems like the recruitment happens as lawmakers are talking to candidates too. I remember talking to Genevieve Collins, who was a Republican who ran for the House in 2018. She was like a championship rower. She ran against Colin Allred in Texas. And I remember talking to her and she was like, yeah, somebody asked me about if I play softball. It's like, because she was very athletic. And she was like, I cannot play softball, but I could run, I guess. And so it's funny that it is something that comes up on their side too.
I do feel like most of the candidates that I can remember who were very gung-ho about playing in the game didn't end up winning. I think the most notable of those was Monica Trinnell, who ran twice in Montana and who is a former Olympian and world champion rower. And she like lit up when I asked her about, she started regaling me with like stories of how she would come into softball games as like the closer and like,
oh my gosh,
she was raring to go. You have to understand, she came in a full, like, it was almost like a Canadian tuxedo. She had like the jean jacket and jeans, and her jean jacket was embroidered with the Olympic rings. It was like, wow. she was leaning into it. And so she very much was excited to talk about that. And then of course, didn't end up winning. So
yeah,
we'll never know, but
we'll never know.
And I think maybe the press team, Missy Cotter Smozzle in Virginia's 2nd district, falling short and losing that race probably was to the press team's benefit. I think she could have been she could have been a problem.
Interesting.
In
okay.
So,
yeah.
we'll see. We'll see what this cycle's just getting started. So we have a whole new group of candidates. So we're gonna have to ask and bring back our scouting reports to you.
Yeah. Keep us posted what you hear.
So we do want to talk a little bit of politics with you in addition to running through the game. You recently got to observe a series of focus groups with some Trump voters, specifically Hispanic and Latino voters who supported Trump in 2024. We want to hear all about what you heard, but we're also kind of interested in the process. So just kind of walk us through what it was like to be in that experience. How was the focus group conducted? Did you participate at all, or were you just observing? And what's something that people might not realize or understand about focus group testing?
Yeah, all good questions. So this is part of our we call it like the Deciders series, where we talk to groups of voters that are crucial to the election. And it's done in partnership with Syracuse University and two research firms called Engagius and Sago. So those are the folks that conduct the focus groups, and we just observe during that process. We work with them on, topics that we are curious about and things like that, but they're Engagius and Sago are conducting the actual groups. And I think something that that is important to keep in mind that folks maybe might not think about as much is sometimes it can be tricky or confusing with polling versus focus groups and what's the difference. And focus groups are such a small group of voters. Like we talked to 13 voters over the course of two different groups over a couple of hours. So it's like you get to dive really deep with these voters, but they don't necessarily give you the full picture of like what this group of voters is thinking broadly. So that's just important to keep in mind when you're like looking at focus groups or reading about them, that, of this group of voters, for example, about half of them were independents, half of them were Republicans. They all voted for Trump in 2024. There were 4 of them who voted for Biden in 2020 and then flipped to Trump. So a lot of interesting dynamics. But again, like I wouldn't say that we know what most Latino Trump voters think because this is such a small group, but it does give us really interesting insight. We can dive really deep on some issues with some of these folks as well.
And how do you, as a reporter, when you're writing up your story, balance that question of we've got these interesting conversations with a very small group of people that are worthwhile, but also it's not representative of the much, much larger population that we're trying to understand more? How do you walk that tightrope as a reporter when you're writing up or publicizing the results of what you've seen?
Yeah. So first we say that outright in the story, right? We make clear that this is not a poll, that this is a small group of voters. We make clear the number of voters we talk to, the kind of different breakdown and that sort of thing. So we're very like clear about it so folks don't have that kind of confusion. But it's also interesting to still dive into it and still share their perspectives. And we've done I'm thinking of like voter callback stories from our poll where we maybe talk to like 30 voters or 20 voters, like their perspectives, they're still interesting and notable, even if it's not necessarily a representative sample. They're still a piece of the puzzle, right? So it's still important to kind of share what they're thinking and how they're viewing different things going on. So kind of being really clear about that and still telling the stories as well in a way that's, I think we mentioned most, if not all, the voters that we spoke to at some point in the story that we wrote about it to kind of give the varying perspectives as well.
And I think that's key. Maybe some of the frustration with the media or the lack of trust in the media has to do with transparency. And so I think trying to be upfront with that is maybe, a small way to try to regain that trust that, hey, we're not trying to make this seem like it's bigger or smaller than what it is, but this is, these are real people who have these thoughts, and trying to understand, get into the minds of voters that fit that, demographic and political profile.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so what'd you learn? What were the big takeaways from the two conversations?
So we touched on a wide range of issues, like what they're thinking about President Trump, the different political parties, the economy. But one of the most interesting discussions, some of the more interesting discussions were around kind of where people started to break with each other was on immigration. These were, as we mentioned, Latino voters who supported President Trump, broadly very supportive of his presidency, very supportive of his immigration policies. But we saw some interesting divides when it came to how the administration is approaching deportations. So we saw some people who said, people who are here illegally broke the law. Everyone should be deported. We have to enforce the laws that we have. But then we saw some people start to kind of wrestle with this in real time of thinking, yes, they broke the law, but President Trump said he was going to focus on violent criminals, and some of these people aren't violent criminals. Some of these folks have been here a long time. And there was an interesting exchange where one woman said, people who have been here a long time, why haven't they become citizens? And another woman who was a Venezuelan immigrant chimed in and said, it's a really tough process. Like there's not a direct path to becoming a citizen. And so there were some interesting, not necessarily that these folks were saying there were 2 of the 13 that said they wouldn't vote for Trump again. So even folks who were kind of wrestling with this still broadly supported the president. But we did start to see some of these cracks emerging as they're watching these deportations continue. So I think it's going to be interesting to see like how that conversation develops as these deportations move forward as well. And some of the folks did mention too that they have seen kind of a sense of fear in their community online, in conversations with family and friends, like people who are afraid to go outside or say like you have to have your documentation on you. So there is that is permeating to some extent. So it was just interesting to kind of hear all of that. Like I said, they sort of were wrestling with it in real time as they're answering these questions.
And that's a really important, I think this is a great example of what the administration, maybe the struggles that the president is having right now, that Republicans in general have said, yeah, look at the polling. It says deportations are popular. They voted for the president, and we're just doing what we said. He's just doing what he said he was going to do. But when people watch it, and some of the deportations, whether there's confusion over immigration status or their criminal record or not, it's more complex, it's messier, and
Yes.
some people are not happy with how it's playing out, even though they might have told a pollster, yes, I think that people who are in this country illegally should be deported.
Yeah, that's right. And it also underscored the differences that we see in some of the polling, like depending on how you ask the question. If you say deport criminals, what about deporting people who have been here for decades, where we see the fluctuation in the numbers? It was interesting to see that reflected in these conversations as well, that there is that nuance and some of this gray area. And it was interesting too. I mean, you might think like maybe Democrats have an opportunity with these voters, which maybe they do, but we also asked them, what traits would you use to describe the Democratic Party? And we heard weak, crazy, out of touch, too woke. So they view the Democratic Party has a lot of work to do with this group of voters as well. So there are some challenges for both parties in some of these conversations.
Now it's time for our final segment. Look what I found. This is the part of the show where we talk about something that we stumbled across this week. It doesn't have to be political. It can be a TV show, a movie, an album, a great meal we had out on the town. You never know what you're going to get.
So, Bridget, this is going to be a softball question, but what did you find?
Softball question, very nice.
I'm working hard here.
I'm in a book club, and I recently read a book that I could not put down, and definitely stayed up way too late reading, which doesn't happen often. So I thought I'd talk about that. And that book was called God of the Woods. It's by Liz Moore. It's a novel, kind of like a thriller, a little eerie at times, and it was just like everyone in our book club said the same thing, that they couldn't put it down and stayed up way too late. So it was a good read.
Would this be bedtime reading for children?
No. I don't want to give too much away, but there's like a summer camp and somebody goes missing, and it's like it's Liz Moore was very good at kind of misdirecting you, like you thought you figured it out, and then there was another twist, and so you kind of kept you guessing to the end. But I wouldn't suggest reading before bed. It can be
That's good to know. Thank you
You're welcome.
Thank you for that advice.
No, that sounds good. Well, I recently watched a movie that I really thought was quite enjoyable and perhaps a little bit more lighthearted than God of the Woods. It's called Deep Cover. It's on Amazon Prime. It's fun. It's silly. It's the premise is that a bunch of struggling improv comics in London are hired by the police to conduct sting operations. It's got a stacked cast. They put that Amazon money to good use. Bryce Dallas Howard, Orlando Bloom, and Nick Mohammed, who plays Nate in Ted Lasso, are the three comics. And then Sean Bean, Ian McShane, and Patty Considine have supporting roles. I really enjoyed it. I knew nothing about the movie until my friend suggested it last week. So always glad when the streamers put out something that isn't just like slop.
I'm glad I've seen that advertised, and I was curious it was good. So that's good to know.
And Orlando Bloom is really funny. I feel like he got typecast a lot in his earlier days just because he is so handsome and like all that, but like he's got real comedic chops that he plays up.
Wow. Good
Well,
to know.
this went a very different direction than I expected because it doesn't sound like it is a remake of the 1992 movie called Deep Cover, which was a Lawrence Fishburne crime thriller that was maybe also most famous for being Snoop Dogg. The soundtrack, the song Deep Cover was Dr. Dre, and it was introducing Snoop Dogg. It was like Snoop Dogg's first entry into the world. And so when you said Deep Cover, I'm like, oh yeah, Jacob watching Deep Cover from 1990. Like, no, this is I think a very different movie or feel than Deep Cover from 1992. But I don't know, you should check out, if you haven't seen the other one, maybe you should check that one out. But
Yeah, no, I'll add it to the list. I'm a big Lawrence Fishburne fan,
So I found myself last week on the field at Northwest Stadium where the Commanders play for Kendrick Lamar and SZA. It was really, my daughter, her soccer team had a fundraising event, and so basically my job was to help this mobile beer vendor on the floor pour beers at one of the biggest, hottest tickets in the country. And so it was fun. It was a learning experience. I learned a lot about the beer vending process. But if when I tell some people that have known me for a long time that I was pouring beers at a rap concert, those are not two of the boxes that normally get checked off on my bio. So, but that's it was a fun time.
Wow. You can add that to your resume.
Exactly. It was it was great. It was a great production. Still not, even though those are Kendrick Lamar and SZA are huge, not at the top of my list, but it was good to be a part of it.
we're slowly getting closer. Chris Stapleton was like a total no for you, Nathan, and now we went the opposite direction. We overshot clearly to Kendrick and SZA, and maybe we'll calibrate down to something in top 40 that we can get you to listen to at some point.
We still have plenty of episodes of so the production was amazing, but also something I'd never seen. I've been going to shows for a while, but they kind of co-headlined. There was a DJ who got everyone going, but then they would go back and forth. They would do 3, 4, 5 songs, one of them Kendrick, and then SZA would come out, and sometimes they have their collabs where they're doing them together. But I've never really seen co-headlining like that before, and it worked. I thought it was good.
That's so cool.
Well, this has been Inside Elections, brought to you by Live Nation.
Unfortunately, with those fees, but anyway, I didn't have to pay. At least I was volunteering. So, you never know what you're going to get. That's what we tell people. You never know what you're going to get. Well, Bridget, thank you for joining us on all through this journey. We've covered a lot of territory.
Yeah, wow. Thank you so much for having me. This is so fun. It's great to see you guys.
At Inside Elections, we provide nonpartisan analysis of congressional, presidential, and gubernatorial races. With a combination of reporting and data, we break down the key races and bring valuable context to complex elections. Go to InsideElections.com to subscribe to the bi-weekly newsletter. We've got individual subscriptions and group packages that are tailored for association and corporate PACs. If you liked this episode, please subscribe to the podcast and rate us on your favorite platform. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the thumbs up button and subscribe. If you didn't like today's episode, please email Bruce Springsteen. We also wanted to thank our producers, Alan Tuzinski and Melissa Lenner of Pretty Easy Podcasts, and associate producer, Conrad Tolosa. Please come back and join us next time.